So this is the food plot that is closest to my cabin. I dissed it this morning, and also I backbladed. Well, first I backbladed the high spots and brought it down to this wet area, and you can tell it's not wet anymore. So hopefully that'll continue. Next spring, I brought quite a bit of dirt from the top side down here. And now I'm going to plant buckwheat, a little bit of forage peas and sunflowers, and then I'm going to drag it again with the teeth flat to get that seed. It's a little bit larger seed and needs to be about an inch below the dirt level. So I'm gonna go over it with the drag probably 3 or so times, and hopefully it gets deep enough. And then it's supposed to rain tomorrow, about a 50% chance. So hopefully, actually the next 3 days, it's like a 50% chance. So this is 2 weeks later, and the buckwheat is growing pretty good. There's some peas in here. Oh. Phone. There's some deer bedded right by my food plot, right where those hinge cuts are. Anyhow, I got some peas here. They've been eating those, I see. There's one there and one here. Otherwise, this is all buckwheat. And what's really nice is we had a heavy rain yesterday, a very heavy rain, and this spot right here where I fixed and brought dirt in, that was a big puddle for the last 2 years, there's no standing water. So that's awesome, it worked. So all I did on this plot was lime it. There is no fertilizer, so yet. I'm probably gonna fertilize it next week. But it's growing good. Here's 1 week after I planted this food plot, and the clover's just starting to come up. Looks like it should do pretty well. Pretty dry in here though. Hopefully we get another rain this week in a few days. But there's plants coming up everywhere. So I'll check on it in the next week. Here's some bear tracks. Small one. All right, so here's that food plot I planted 2 weeks ago. And I know what farmers feel like. Just the weather like never cooperates. We haven't had rain but once in the last week. But this is just baked dry. But there are a bunch of plants coming up still. And it's 50% chance of rain in the next couple days. Every day it's like 50% chance. So hopefully it rains. I see a ton of little plants coming up. Here's my south pond food plot. I planted in clover and chicory, and I actually put a little brassica. You can see the brassica coming up. And it has rained a good amount, so hopefully this will take off now. I never did kill this plot off. All I did was disc it under. So I'm sure some weeds will be coming back. That's 2 weeks later. The clover has come up. There is a little bit of brassica in places, like there. But there's a lot of weeds. But this isn't a complete loss. I won't touch this. I'll see how it does this year and next year when it grows back. Hopefully this will come in before the weeds and stuff, and we'll see. I might not have to plant this for a few years, which would be great because it's kind of a pain to get back here. But yeah, there's a lot of clover in here. It's better over here than it was back there. There was more weeds. A lot of dry spots. It's really bad soil around here. So it's July 12th, and this is the last time I'm gonna show this plot. It's coming in pretty good. The chicory, you can see, and clover, and there's some weeds and grass. I'd say it's about 70-30, 70% actual came in nice, and the rest is kind of weeds and grass. There's a couple some brassica in here, but very little. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I think next year it'll come in strong, and I won't have to mess with it anymore. So I'm pretty happy with this plot. Some bear tracks you can faintly see. You can see the paw, the claw, and the toes. Not a very big one. Looks like there might be multiple. This is always a good spot, though. I put a trail camera back here the first year, and I saw quite a few different bears. This is where the guy actually baited the guy who I bought the land from back here. This was his hunting spot. There's a clear cut on the other side of those woods, and a swamp behind that. Now this is my north food plot, and this is planted in sunflower seeds, forage peas, cow peas, and I think some lab, and you can see that it's starting to come up. This is 2 weeks ago that I planted this. This dirt is a lot better than the south side of the pond. Pretty sparse though. That could be because the deer are coming in here and eating it. I don't know. The bugs are so bad right now. Mosquitoes and horse flies. Or deer flies, I should say. But I don't see a lot of tracks, and it has rained. So I think it's just starting to sprout up. 2 weeks later, and not too impressed. There's some cow peas, and that's buckwheat. Pretty sparse though. I gotta see if I got enough batteries to put a camera on here and see if these deer are coming in here and eating this. I do see tracks now throughout here. Pretty much a waste for a food plot. There goes a duck. Just a lot of grass coming up and a little bit of buckwheat. And there's spots where there's some peas and stuff. It's disappointing. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the future. I have 200 acres here that I'm trying to manage for, firewood, maple syrup, and also deer hunting, mostly deer hunting. So I'm trying to thicken up the woods and make it better deer hunting with food plots and steering the deer with travel corridors and hinge cutting and all that sort of stuff. And also, half the time, I plan on hunting the public land, which in the last 3 years, that's what I've done. I've probably hunted it 3/4 of the time I've hunted the public land. So there's thousands of acres around me, and there's none of that type of stuff. It's just big woods, and the deer forage for food all the time. The closest ag fields are about 3 miles away. I don't hunt over there. I actually hunt this way because there's more private land over there. So there's more hunters by the ag land. I'm interested to see in the future whether I get most of my deer on my own property or most of the deer on the public property. We'll see if I can grow bigger deer, and if the bigger bucks come to my property, or will I see them more so on the public land. On the public land, I probably will only hunt, one setup, maybe twice, and then I'll go to a different spot. Here, I will also not hunt any one spot, in 2 consecutive hunts, but the pressure obviously on 200 acres will be more so than the pressure I put on the public land. we'll see if all these improvements on my property actually benefit me in the next 10 years. But for right now, I'm gonna check out this apple food plot. I got 4 apple trees on here, and I just planted it last weekend in like a summertime type mix. I've also moved the dirt around, bringing a lot of the topsoil over here down into this wet area. And after a couple days of rain this week, it looks like it worked quite well. This all down here was just a mud pit. And now I only have a couple spots that are still wet. I wanted to do this right away in the beginning of all these projects because I want to obviously build the soil. So I'm sure I screwed it up by taking off 3-4 inches up there and bringing it down here. But anyhow, I'm going to see the rain exposed a lot of the seed. I had some of that buried. It is germinating right there. My 4 apple trees are doing well, and so are the hazelnuts. I have a ton of hazelnuts planted around this food plot. I do have to get cages around them, but I believe there's 5 different hazelnuts around here, 4 different apple trees. There's some high bush cranberries I planted, and my wife has planted a bunch of pumpkins on these mounds. This is how we created this food plot with a bulldozer, so it made a bunch of mounds. And last year and this year we planted pumpkins, which actually helped out quite a bit. The deer loved them, so I don't know what my dog's into. What do you got? Hopefully it's not a porcupine. Pretty sparse. Real sparse. A lot of deer tracks in here. One good thing is, again, we had heavy rains, and all this used to be standing water, and it's not anymore. So that's a good sign. Now I just got to, over time, build the soil up, and so they can grow some food. But we'll give it time and see what happens to this stuff. Yeah, so there's not much growth in the apple plot. So this is 3 weeks later. This is what this food plot ended up being, my apple plot, which isn't much. So what I think I'm gonna do is, it's getting to be the end of July. I'm just going to plant over the top and then broadcast brassica over the top of this and fertilize it. And hopefully it'll come in for a fall food plot. We'll see.